help us to be stronger in your word, to walk worthy the calling that you have called us to be. We ask tonight that you touch us and strengthen us now as we study your word. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Tonight lesson tonight, it's going to be talking about overflow. Overflow. We're going to be coming out of 2 Kings, the 4th chapter, 1 through 7. 2 Kings 1 through 7. Before we get into that, I'm going to do just a little quick introduction about overflow. A lot of times when we come up here, there might be some built-in questions that we may ask, but I didn't have a lot of them that I put in here tonight. So if you have something that you want to interject into the lesson, we got microphones out here. I might even ask one or two questions, but I don't want to make it sound like I'm preaching up here, but I am just teaching. But I want us to be a part of that. So if you have something to say, please just get a mic and just whine into it. But it's Pastor might have sent out a letter to most of the members, all the members. He should have sent one out. You should have received it. And this year, we're talking about the restoration and overflow. That's the theme of this house this year's restoration and overflow. And so tonight, we're going to just spend a little time tonight talking about overflow. Okay? And so, are you ready to live in overflow? That's a question tonight. So, are you ready to live in overflow? And so, again, when we're talking about different scriptures, the thief coming in the night to steal, kill, and destroy. But we know that Christ come that we may have life, what? More abundantly. And that's what he's saying here tonight. So overflow. Overflow, we see that, we can look up different definitions of what overflow looks like in the scriptures. But it means for me, and as I studied this, it's telling us that God gives us more than extra. That's what it's telling us when we're talking about overflow when it comes to God. And sometimes that overflow, when he gives it to us, it doesn't mean that we have to keep it to ourselves. It means it spills over. It might even spill over in something in our lives. Okay, it could be spiritually, emotionally. Sometimes it could be material type things that we spills over to. But God blesses us with overflow, not just for us, but also to use it to help somebody else. And so this excess that he gives us, this abundance he gives it to us as a purpose to help us to see that he's blessing us. And then when he blesses us, he wants us to do what with it? To bless somebody else. Matter of fact, you might have done that before. You might have had a little excess and you gave that to somebody and you wanted them to receive it. But at the same time when you wanted to receive it, you didn't want them to do anything for it. You just want to bless them. As soon as you bless them, how do they feel when you bless them? When they're excited? Absolutely, because what are you doing? You just using the seed that God has given you to bless somebody else because you understand how good God has been to you. So you want that overflow just to flow over to somebody else. Because why? He's been so good to you. And that's what overflow looks like. So it implies that something is running over. As a matter of fact, in Psalms 23:5, it tells us, my cup runneth over. Y'all have read that before. And so when it says, like when God is planning to do something, and when man is looking at it, man has what we call a way of looking at things, and this is the level, or this is the only place that it can go. It cannot exceed that. So when you have a cup that that you feel at home, you say, well, I cannot overfill the cup, because what happens? It overflows, right? But when God sees that, and he says, I can overfill it because I want you to spread that out to somebody else. And God always looks at us and says, I'm going to overflow you and make sure that you have enough, not just for you, but somebody else. And so he says, my cup runneth over. And so even when we have come to Sunday school from time to time, we have looked at scriptures like this, and we have talked about classes like this, and we talked about overflow. And we realized, as I was giving a class one time about overflow, we realized where the overflow comes from. And if you don't know tonight where your overflow comes from, I'm going to tell you, your overflow comes from God. And he says, even when we're talking about that, he said, I will supply all your needs according to what? His riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And that's found in Philippians 4:19. So he says it all comes from him. But when we're talking about looking at overflow, a lot of times when we're thinking about overflow, we might have a way of overflow coming to us. But overflow can come to you in joy. Somebody don't have joy right now, but they looking for it in their lives. But they get it. They realize they got joy in their home, in their family. They realize now they filled with joy and they're excited about it. And so if you ever have living in a place where there's no peace and all of a sudden you get overflow with peace, man, you are happy. If you are a person that going through some health issues and all of a sudden you realize that you have been overflowing with health and you realize that now God has given you the opportunity to be healthy, to walk healthy, to have, you see everybody else going through issues after issues of life and you want like, man, what in the world? I've really been blessed because my health has been good. Some of us also in here been blessed with resources. And God has continued to bless us with resources. Somebody's going to open up a business in here, and God's going to bless you. And he's given all these blessings to you just for you to have overflow in your life. Now, I know for a fact that, I was in the military, and I tell you this now, when you get promoted, it's just like having what? Overflow. Because you excited, you remember back in the days, you said, I can't wait to get promoted. I can't wait to get an advancement. And then you get that one, and then all of a sudden he gives you another one down the road. And you said, well, wow, I didn't even expect this one to come. But he's still promoting you. He's still opening doors for you, and he's still making a way for you. Because why? He wants you to have what? Overflow. And some people sitting here all tonight, they look around you tonight, and some people have been blessed with finances and realize that it's only because God has allowed you to have overflow. Yes, you have a savings account, you have a banking account, you've been investing your money, you've been doing things like that. So he allowed things like that to happen in your life, not just for you to look back and say, look what I got, but it should be something you say in your heart, say, look what God has done for me. Yeah. But when you say that at the same time, you should also say, what can I do to help somebody else? And that's what he's telling us about what overflow looks like. And so when overflow begins in our life, it begins at a place when we stop looking for it. Because you can't be going to God and asking him to do all these things for you. You just got to be in a position for him to do it for you. Because then you appreciate it more. You appreciate it more because if you asking for it, you looking for it. Because can you imagine every time your sons or daughter, all they want from you is want, right? And all of a sudden, they just begging. All of a sudden, they always asking for stuff. They're always wanting stuff from you. But wouldn't it be nice if you just see them just out doing some things? If they just cleaning up their room, cleaning up the kitchen, just being nice in school, just doing some random things around the house, and all of a sudden you do what is nice, what God would always do for us. He says, I'm just going to bless you because why? You've been so good and so faithful that I'm going to do something for you. And all of a sudden, you got overflow flowing from the parent to the child. And God says, not only I'm going to let it flow to you. And so when overflow comes, it looks like this. You in fellowship with God. You in fellowship with him. Now, that just goes in your home. If your kids are in fellowship with you, y'all in sync with one another, it don't even bother you to do something for them that does it. But when they're not in fellowship with you and they're giving you all kind of issues in life, come on now, do you want to do anything for them? Now, I'm not speaking about myself, but I'm just telling you right now, I'm just telling you, you don't want to do nothing for them. But I'm saying when you in fellowship with them, you want to make sure they overflow. As a matter of fact, sometimes, and it's happened to me plenty of times, there have been plenty of times I never asked my mother for anything. She just showered it for me. And so that's what he says. He says when overflow comes, you don't have to be looking for it. He says because you're in fellowship with me and because of the relationship we have, I just want to do something nice for you. I want to overflow you with something. And so again, he says, not only that, he said, overflow comes when you are obeying his commandments. Man, I'm telling you right now, if you don't do nothing else, you need to make sure that you're obeying his commandments. Because every time you look around, you can always see somebody not obeying his commandments. Matter of fact, you can tell somebody who's serving God is all about, he always tell them, just what? Obey my commandments. Scripture after scripture, he talks about, they are not obeying my commandments. But he goes right back and says, if you just only what? Obey my commandments, then overflow will happen. And then the next thing he says here, he says, now overflow also comes when we're walking by faith. Because I'm going to tell you right now, when you want to receive overflow, it doesn't look like it's coming. But you have to walk in what? By faith. Because look, if you're trying to go back to school, and you don't really have the resources to go back to school, you might have been one of the stellar students in school. But all of a sudden, it's been laid up on your heart to go back to school. Guess what you have to do? You got to walk that thing out by faith. Because if God is telling you to do it, and you believe in your heart God is telling you to do it, you're going to have to walk that thing out by faith. You can't let somebody persuade you. Well, it just don't seem right. And somebody talking you out of it, then you're not walking by faith. So he says, have fellowship with me. He said, obey my commandments. And then he said, walk in faith. And if you can do just those three things, guess what can happen to you? You need to get ready for your overflow. Because if you can do just those three things, overflow is coming in your life. Because you're having fellowship with him, you're walking with him, you're obeying his commandments, then there is nothing holding God back from showering you with overflow. Now, again, you don't have to be looking for it. You don't have to be standing up trying to parade down the road and says, overflow is coming toward me, and I'm waiting on it. No. You just keep doing what you're doing, and overflow is going to happen. And again, it's not just for you. It is about who you going to bless with overflow. Now, let me just ask you a question. Since I said tonight we might not ask the question. If overflow came to you, can you think of somebody right now that you wouldn't mind blessing? You don't have to tell me who it is, but I want you to know it in your heart. There's somebody right now that you realize that, hey, if overflow came my way, I know that I'm going to reach out and try to bless that person or this business or someone else. As a matter of fact, it's so good that God, he keep telling us that when you bless somebody else, God can't wait to do what? Give you another blessing. Because you are not afraid to hold on to it, right? You want to hold on to it. You blessing somebody else. So he's looking at you and say, wait a minute now. If they just going to keep blessing somebody, I'm still trying to bless them. I'm going to have to just keep on blessing them. Okay? And so he's telling us, he says, I want to bless you, but if you bless somebody else, then overflow is going to keep coming in your life. Because God is the God of El Shaddai. And that's the name of God because he says what? I am the God of more than enough. Okay? Read that sometime. He's God of more than enough. He's God Almighty. He's God of self-sufficient, and he's God of all. And he wanted us to realize that's who he is because he's going to give us all of what we need, and we don't have to worry about it because why? He's going to shower us with overflow. Now, we're going to do a story tonight, and it's a familiar story. And I said before, we're going to be coming out of 2 Kings, chapter 4, 1 through 7. And we're going to be talking about Elijah and the woman with the bottle of oil, okay, the widow woman with the oils, okay. So we're going to start right there, and we're going to be using the word overflow to explain these 7 verses tonight. Y'all going to go with me tonight? Everybody's good? All right, so we're going to go with me tonight. So, again, we're going to be talking about overflow. So we're going to go right into verse number 1, and then we're just going to just read one verse at a time. We're going to use each one of them as an acronym for the word overflow, and then we're going to just talk about how good God is and what overflow looks like, okay? Let's go with verse number 1.
Okay. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elijah, saying, Thy servant my husband is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen.
So the first word we're going to use in the word overflow is the letter O, and it's going to be obedience. So if you're going to receive overflow, the first thing you need to have is obedience. The woman, the widow woman, they don't give her a name in this story here, but they just call her the widow woman. She reached out to Elijah to remind him of her husband who had died, who was a servant of the Lord. Now, what did that tell you initially? He was obedient, and he had a relationship with God. So she says, now, if I told you before, you got to have a relationship with him. She reminded him that my husband, who was a servant of God, he had a relationship with God, and I just want to remind you who he was. Yes, ma'am. 2 Kings, chapter 4. Yes, verse 1 through 7. Verse 1 through 7. Okay? You're welcome. And so she wanted to remind him that he had a relationship with God. And not only that, she says he is one who revered God. That means he had obedience for God. He obeyed God. And so she said, I just want you to know he was a strong man that walked with God. Now, as I was reading this, I had to stop myself and say, if at some point all of us going to have to be somebody going to lay us out in front of a pulpit somewhere, and somebody going to have to describe us to other people. Now, she was describing her husband after he died. So she said he had a relationship with God. He reverenced God, and he was obedient to God. Now, I'm just asking you, what are they going to say about you when they put you out here? Because somebody's going to say something about your relationship with God. And that's what she was reminding him of the relationship that he had with God. Because she said, my husband, even though he's gone, guess what? He was obedient to God. And she said, I was saying to myself now, she said, I don't understand the thing that's happening to me right now, because for my husband to be obedient, then why is this happening to me? It's happening for a reason, because God wanted to do what? Shower you with overflow. Okay? Don't miss it now. Okay? Don't miss it. So my husband was obedient. So now she's telling him, she said, my 2 sons are going to be taken from the creditor, and they're going to use my sons as slaves if we don't pay what's the debt that's been owed. Now, she was saying to myself, that don't seem like that should happen to a man who had a relationship with God, who was obedient to God, who was following his word. She said, that don't work the way it looks. Because when I tell you before, sometimes when you're going to get overflow, none of it adds up. It don't look like you're going to get ready to get overflow, but God is going to use the situation that you're in for overflow. Okay? And so it doesn't look like it. So she says, basically, he was telling her, if you're going to get overflow, the first thing you got to do is just keep the faith. He says, don't get weary, because when it looks like God is not around, the first thing you want to do is just quit. He says, she's basically telling us right now in this lesson, don't quit, because if overflow is going to come, you must what? Keep the faith. So the woman, the widow woman, she was just looking around for something. She said, but she had but you got to understand, there was a but God. So but God says to me, he says, it is time for your overflow. No matter what you're going in, there is a but God situation. In her situation says, but God is going to come in, and he said, it is now time for an overflow. Now, we all may have read this story before, but she don't even know what's getting ready to happen. But all of a sudden, in this story, you got to understand, but God steps in and says, it's time for an overflow. And we're going to see how this overflow passes out in her life. And so we said, as we started this lesson tonight, we said the O stands for what now? Obedient. Let's read verse number 2. Verse number 2. I don't think your microphone on.
So Elijah said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? And she said, your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil.
See, when God is going to bless you with overflow, there's nothing he need to create new. He's going to use what you already got. He's going to use, let me say it again, he's going to use what you already got. Let me give you a quick example how that works already. If you remember the story of Matthew where Jesus was teaching and the people were following it, and there was 5,000 men that were following it, women and children. And all of a sudden he told them to sit down, but everybody was hungry. They needed something to eat. And so there was 5. So when they brought the young man up, he had how many? 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, let me ask you a question. They didn't have to go out and get anything. They just had what they had right there. And they only had was 5 loaves and 2 fish. Everybody got me? They used what they had. But what did they do with it? They made abundance of what they had. So it was called a what? An overflow. So you missed it. We missed it a long time ago. So it was an overflow that was already happening, because he needed to make sure they understood it's an overflow. You don't know where it's coming from, but all you have to do is what? Just receive the overflow. And see, a lot of times we trying to figure out where's the overflow going to come from. He said, sit down. Everybody sit down, take a seat. We're going to feed them, right? He says, all we had was what? 5 loaves of bread. How many fish? 2 fish. Now, let me just ask you again. How many men were there? 5,000. Now, they don't talk about how many women and kids were there, but you got to understand, it was probably just as many, correct? Because now, if it's just as many and overflow is going to happen, how did the overflow happen? Well, when you put it in God's hand, you don't know how it's going to happen. You just got to do what? Receive it. And so that's the good thing about God. He says, don't try to figure it out. He says, but when I give you the overflow, just take it and receive it. But most of us want to stand back and say, well, God, how are you going to do it? And you miss your blessing, because what are you trying to do? You still trying to sit there and hold on to the what? The 5 loaves you already got because you don't want to give them up. You want to hold on to the little fish you got, and you don't want to give them up. But he said, if you release it into my hands, then I can do what? Multiply it and feed everybody. And so he said, stop looking at it in your own eyes. He said, but just put it in my hands, and then overflow is going to do what? It's going to happen. And so he's saying to this lady tonight, he says, now, only thing she had in her house, everything she had in her house, she just, what do I have in my house but just what? A jar of oil. Now you got to understand that she probably saying to herself, what am I going to do? How is this going to help me with the situation that I have in front of me right now? The situation I have in front of me right now is I'm in debt with the creditors, and if I don't pay this, they're going to come and take my sons. So I have a question here. And so this question is, when the process and when this thing's getting this overflow is going to happen, why is it that when God allows it to happen, why he allows you to see it firsthand? Just ask me the question. Why do he allow you to see it firsthand?
I think this goes back to without a test, there's no testimony.
See, that's what I got right here in my notes. There is no testimony because look here, all of us at some point in our lives got to have a testimony. See, you can probably raise your hand right now and give me a testimony how good God has been to you. But guess what you have to do for yourself? You got to go through it by yourself. And you got to go through. And so when you come on the other side, you have a testimony to tell somebody what? How good God has been. That's all a testimony is. And so he says, I got to take her through this so she can see how good I am and see that I can bring her through it, right? And so when she gets to the other side, when somebody said, well, tell me how good God is, and what's she going to do? She's going to put her hands on the hip. Girl, you don't have, how much time do you have? Let me just tell you how good he is, right? And that's what she's going to do. She's going to tell her testimony. And so when somebody come to you and tell you something that God has done for you, you should not hesitate to tell them how good God has been. The overflow in your life, again, it don't have to be money all the time. It could be relationship. It could be some of your health. Anything that God has done for you, he says, I need you to be able to tell somebody how good God is. And so this woman, she just had a small jar of olive oil. And so, again, when I say when you put it in God's hands, that's what? That's more than enough. Okay? And so you don't know what he's going to do with it, but you got to just put it in his hands to allow him to do something with it that you don't see. If you're trying to see it, you'd never see it. But if you put it in his hands and allow him to do it, then it's just going to manifest to something you've never seen that you ever thought was going to happen. Do that make sense? Okay? All right. Now, since we're still going through this word overflow, the O stands for what? Okay. Y'all, okay, we all, and then what's the second letter? V. And I don't know if I gave it to you, that's vessel. You have to be a vessel. You have to be a vessel and allow God to use you in any capacity he wants to use you. And that's number 2 for vessel, okay? All right, so let's go to verse number 3. Verse number 3.
Then he said, go, borrow 3 vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few.
So, E, expect it. You have to expect something's going to happen. See, sometimes when you ask and you're looking for something, do you expect it to happen? Or do you just say it and just keep on walking, you don't expect it to happen? So you have to be an expectant. You got to have a faith that says, I believe God is going to do what he says he's going to do. You got to prepare yourself for the overflow. You got to believe that God is going to do what he said he was going to do. He's a water for those who are diligently seek after him. So this overflow is going to come, and he says here, watch this. He says, if you are seeking after me, he says, if you're looking for it, he says, now I don't want you to be afraid of the unknown. So a lot of times we are afraid of the unknown because why? We want to see what we're going to get. Or we want to make sure we know in advance what's going to happen in order for us to get it. But he says, I don't want you to be afraid and stop and not do anything because you don't see it your way. A lot of times what will happen is because, see, you can't expect it to come because you're expecting to come your way. If you don't want it because you think it's got to come this way. But then you looking for over here, but God says, no, it's on this side, but you still waiting over here trying to see it this way. He said, but expectancy says that I have to trust God the way he's going to give it to me. And so here in this lesson, she says, all you have to do is do what God says. Okay? Watch this. He says, now all you got to do is do your part. All she had to do is do her part. And she had a part. And so all of us are going to have a part in our own overflow. She had a part, and her part was to do what? Go ask her neighbors just for empty jars. Now watch this. When God is going to bless you and he's going to have overflow for you, he might have you to go do something on your own behalf. But a lot of times what happens is we stop our own blessing because we don't want to do what God is asking us to do because we don't see it the way we see it. Because I don't need you to see the way you think it should be done. Just do it the way I want you to do it. So he says, now go and ask your neighbors. Do your part. There's a plan in it for you. All right? He says, you got to put it in God's hands, okay? And you got to do it my way, okay? He says, now all you got to do, watch this. If you're going to do it, he said, you got to go knock on your neighbor's door. Now, I know nowadays how it used to be. You can always go knock on your neighbor's door, and they'll open up your door, and they're friendly. But nowadays, it's kind of hard to do. But you got to understand, he wanted her to do something that may not have been comfortable for her. Sometimes when God's going to do overflow for you, he wants you to stretch yourself. Let others know that you may be in need. Because you never know, your blessing may come to somebody on the other side of the door. And if you knock on the door, somebody may open up that door for you and says, wait a minute, I've been waiting to do something like this for a long time. And when you do that, then God can open up that door for 16. That's all you need to just open up the door. And so he says, you got to do your part. You got to walk the path. You got to do it and knock on the door and do what I asked you to do. And so that's what she needed to do. So he told her, that's what you need to do. And he says, no, don't just get, he said, when you go there, get as many jars as you can. Ask your neighbor. Go ask your neighbors for these empty jars. Now, my question to you is, watch this. Here you go. Watch this. Who's going to ask this question? If she had not went and knocked on the doors and asked for the jars, what would have happened? Somebody said unprepared. Can you imagine? Somebody has said. Somebody said that. Go ahead.
Disobedient is what we're hearing, and then she wouldn't have had any vessels. And I think, yeah. And the other thing is, God doesn't. If you're disobedient, unprepared, when the blessings come, either A, you won't recognize them, or B, you won't be able to manage them.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm also say that God was setting this whole thing up because he wanted everyone to be a witness to what was going to happen. So she had to go and knock on those doors, and they probably was like, "What is this woman? Why is she asking for my, my containers? Like, what's going on here?" But we hadn't gotten to the end of the story, so therefore he's already laying the groundwork for everyone to be a witness to her blessing and her miracle.
Okay. Here's another thing I discovered too. In the process of going through this overflow, God already knew that her neighbors had what? Empty vessels. He already knew that if she knocked on the door, they would do what? They were given to her, right? He already knew all she had to do was just take a step of faith and just go do it, right? He was going to do all the other work, but guess what she had to do? She had to go. But some of us still just stand by, stand still, and won't do anything because why? It don't look like that's the way the blessing is going to come. But he says, wait a minute, in order for you to receive your overflow, you just got to be able to walk in the path that I'm giving you. But a lot of times we miss the blessing because we want to walk in our own vision. But it's not our vision, it's Christ's vision. He says, if you just do what I asked you to do, I already made provision for the people to give you the jars anyway. All you got to do is just go knock on the door and get it. Yes, sir.
The thing you're hitting on here too is just, and this is something for me, but in prayer, it doesn't matter. Okay, God knows our heart, but we need to vocalize that we need you, God, to fix this. We need you, God, to do something because I have this lack. I need to acknowledge that lack when I'm praying to God because it's not that he doesn't know. I need to tell him that I know he can fix it.
Yes, sir.
I need to say that out loud.
Out loud. out loud. And here's another thing about our walk with Christ. When he gives us these opportunities to show our faith and that we trust him, he gives us just these small tasks to do, just to see if we'll follow what he's given us to do. And if all we had to do is just to be obedient to the small things, then it just increases our faith. And that's how we continue to trust him daily as we walk with him, okay? Let's go to verse number 4. Anybody else want to read verse number 4?
Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side.
So R stands for restoration. Now, when I started this lesson, I said that the church in Rock here was doing, for this year, we was doing restoration and overflow. Now, when we get into this restoration part, this is the hardest part of the overflow process, is restoration. This hardest part of the process, meaning that when you trying to restore something, that means that you got to go through the process. Let me just say it again. You have to go through the process. If you don't go through the process, then you have not been restored. If you ever had to remodel some furniture or anything, remodel something, restoring it, you have to take some old stuff off. You have to scrub it down a little bit. That's the hardest part, right? And then you have to get it down to some fine part of it where it move all the impurities off of it. And then when you get down to that part, you still got to sand it some more and polish it some more and restore it and clean it up some more. And then when you get down to that part, you realize I still need some cleaning to make it so when I do paint it again, it'll hold on to it. But when you get it finished, guess what you have? You have restored it to a new look. It don't look the same as you had it before. It's restored. And so now this lady has to realize, now I got to go through a restoring process because her mindset has to be restored. This overflow is going to happen, but it don't look like it. Look at what I'm telling you. It don't look like it's going to be restored, but in her mind, she's got to go through the process to convince her that it will be restored. That's a hard process for some people because their mindset still telling them it don't look like it, that anything's going to happen if I go get all these jars of oil. It don't look like it through my natural eyes. It don't even feel like it. Why am I carrying all these jars around with me they empty for? It don't feel like nothing's going to happen. It don't look like nothing going to happen. It don't even feel like anything's getting ready to happen. But guess what I got to do? I got to go through the process in order to make it work. And so what he's telling you, he says, don't stop at the process. Yeah, it may not even add up because she's saying, wait a minute. I have one jar at home and it's got some oil in it and it got just a little bit. Now, if I got all of these, I'm lugging around with me, and I got to carry all these back home with me. Guess what? It don't look like I'm going to be able to restore my life because I need to make sure that my sons don't become slaves. I got to make sure that the creditor get paid, right? Because she went to the man of God for help. And so in this restoring process, nothing looks, feels, or even sounds like she's going to get restored. But guess what she still's got to do? She still got to keep knocking on doors. She still got to go through the process, even though what? In her eyes, in her mind, even what she's doing don't feel, look like it's going to happen. And so what she's got to look like, she says, this is just way too much work for me. Come on now, have you been there before? You said, God, wait a minute, I've been praying all this time. I've been looking for something, but it's just way too much work. How long is this going to take? If you're going to restore me, if you're going to give me overflow, why don't it just happen right away? You looking for it to happen like yesterday. You've been praying for it, but he says, wait a minute, come on now. He said, you just got to go through the process. The overflow is going to happen. You just got to go through it. And then all of a sudden you just get tired. And he said, man, I'm tired of this here. It ain't working. Then you start crying. Come on now. Who I'm speaking to out there? Come on. Then you start crying. And then you get bored. And you say, wait a minute, these jars need to be clean. Come on now. Come on now. It don't even look like it. This ain't working. I'm scratching my head. God process don't look like it's going to work for me. And then all of a sudden you say, wait a minute, even I'm doing all this work, everything around me just look the same. Ain't nothing changed yet. Nothing changed yet. For years, I know this gentleman was trying to lose weight. As an example of what I'm trying to say tonight, he was trying to lose weight for a long, long time. He was always looking at the processes. He just never could get past the process. You know, this time of year, if you can imagine, some people might even have a resolution to do what? To lose weight. But as I said before tonight, sometimes you have to get through the mind process. You can go and start exercising, but if your mind is not right, guess what's going to happen? You're still not going to lose weight. You have to get the mind right, okay? And so here in her defense here, she has to get her mind conditioned that the process may not look, feel, or even sound like it's going to happen, but if she keeps her mind right, she goes through the process, it's going to work out. So this guy, he was still trying to lose weight, and all of a sudden he decided, you know what? I got to get my mind right. Instead of trying to look like I'm trying to lose weight from the outside, because this is what we do all the time. We try to lose weight to impress somebody from the outside. But God says, no, I'm going to change you from the inside. So when I change you from the inside, it's permanent. Because watch this. When he started doing the things that he needed to do to lose weight from the mindset, right, he's changed his diet, not just exercise. Then he put exercise with it, but got his mind right, and he started conditioning himself to make sure that he did the right things to lose weight, not just from the outside appearance for somebody to see him, but in the mindset of his own mind. But all of a sudden, he kept doing that, but watch this. The first month, it didn't look like he was doing anything. But guess what? It didn't stop it. The second month, it didn't even look like he was still doing anything. But guess what? Since his mind is right, guess what he didn't do? He didn't stop. The third month, he didn't stop. The fourth month, he didn't stop. And all of a sudden, somebody said, look like you're losing weight. Well, right there, that set him on fire. Come on now. That's all it takes. Because when you keep doing it from a mindset, it don't look like it from the outside. But inside, internally, he was already doing the work. But all he needed was somebody else on the outside to tell him, man, it looked like you losing weight. And so when that happened, he knew right away that it got to be working. Because now his mindset has changed. Because it happens from the inside out, not the outside in. And so he says, if I want to bless you, that's what it's going to look like. Okay? And so now let's go verse number 5. Verse number 5. We're almost wrapping it up here. I'm going as fast as I can, but we're going to make sure we have a great time while we're here.
So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out.
So here we're talking about faithfulness. She's got to stay faithful. This small thing of faithfulness. Now we know that God is faithful. We understand that he's unchanging. He keeps his promises regardless of our own personal behavior. And ain't that good? Now you might want to write that down. He never changes, even with our own behavior. Because if he's going to be faithful to you, he's not worried about how you act. Think about that. A lot of times, if you're going to be faithful to somebody and, if they start acting up, guess what you're going to do? Say that again, sir. Come on now. God says he's unchanging. He keeps his promises regardless of our behavior with him. But he says, just stay faithful. And even with us, when we looking at things in a perspective of how we do it, God says he wants us to just remain obedient. These spiritual principles of staying faithful and trusting him, he says they will just pay off in the end. He says you just got to stay faithful. These principles result immediately in your life. You'll see results if you just stay faithful. And that's what he always tells us, just what? Stay faithful. Because one of the things we always want to do is just quit without being faithful. He says, I just need you to stay faithful. So the woman, so she went into her house, she shut the door. She had her sons in there. They closed the door, and guess what they do? They just start pouring this oil. Now, they just start pouring oil into these vessels. I don't know about you, but when she started, it just didn't look like nothing was going to happen. But guess what she kept on doing? She just kept on pouring oil. It didn't look like anything was going to happen. Why? Because how many jars of oil did she have? She only had one. But it said that she shut the door, and she just what? She just kept on pouring the oil. She just kept having faith, and she just kept on doing what? Pouring the oil. So I'm telling you right now, if you're going to receive your overflow, you got to just keep on doing it, even if it don't look like anything's happening. Okay? Just keep on doing it. So the overflow comes in our lives in that way. So we got to make sure that we understand it. It's coming in this way, and God allows us to see that. He says, now don't expect it, God to do it your way. Do it God's way. Don't expect God to look at how you want it to be done. Because watch this. If she had the opportunity when she went to the man of God and says, I need you to help me because the creditors are coming to pick up my sons because we can't pay these bills. And if we don't pay them, they're going to take them as slaves. Now, what's the easy way for her to remedy that? She can go into more debt and borrow more money from the man of God or borrow some more money from somebody. But that would not alleviate the problem she's going to have. Right. In her own eyes, she needed a what? A quick fix. And a lot of us, we are always looking for what? A quick fix. But God says, if I'm going to do an overflow, he says, I just need you to go through the process, okay? And he says, if you just do it my way and let me do it my way, not your way, it's much better if you allow me to do it my way, not your way. So he says, stay faithful to God. Make sure that you follow his directions and allow him to lead you in a direction that you may not be comfortable going. It may not feel right. It may not even feel comfortable to you at all. But he says, if you just allow him to continue to lead you down that road, he said, it may not look like it. He said, but when we get to the other side, he said, I'm going to be right there waiting on you because it's going to work out in the end, okay? So that's what he's telling her in verse number 5. Let's go to verse number 6. Verse number 6. We're almost through. Verse number 6.
And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, there is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed.
And the oil stayed. So verse number 6, and the letter there is L for love. This is God's primary motive for doing anything he does. Why? Because he first loved us. He says, my motive is always going to be the same because I love you. This is my motivation right now. So watch this. The lady, in her own way, did not know how the overflow was going to come in her life. She didn't see it. She didn't know how it was going to come. She didn't understand it, but she just stayed in the process. Her process was like this right here. She was really looking at her sons, and she realized that she had to do something to make sure her sons were going to be saved. And during this process of making sure her son was going to be saved, she was really trying to figure out how was I going to do that. But then she realized it has nothing to do with what I was going to do is what God is going to do through me, okay? And now what did she do? During this process, she realized that it was not about her. She says, now, I have one concern. Here's this concern that I have. This concern that she had is, how am I going to get out of debt and also save my sons? How am I going to get out of debt and also save my sons at the same time? Now, in order for her to do that, she has to do a couple of things. She had to stay faithful. God said, I love you. She knows that God loves her, and she still has to stay in that room with the doors closed and continue to doing what God had asked her to do. Watch this. Her only concern was what? Getting out of debt, making sure her son was saved. Now, what was God concerned? God says, you just have a small mission. Your mission is small. He says, all you want is just a small blessing. The blessing you're looking for is for me to get you out of debt and make sure your sons are saved. He said, but my blessing is to give you overflow and make sure you are also taken care of, but I also give you enough to take care of other people too. Now, if you didn't understand that, that's shout. That's something to shout about. Because see, she was only looking for something to help her and her son to get out of debt and make sure what? Her sons didn't go in there what? Slavery. But God says, wait a minute, I got a bigger picture. I got something much bigger than that. He says, I want to bless you abundantly. He says, when I bless you abundantly, that means what? I'm going to bless you, your sons, and your community. So what you're going to have more than enough. Okay? You're going to have more than enough. So that's what he wanted to do, is bless her with more than enough. And so that's what he's going to do for her. So we get down to the, anybody have any questions on that last part there? Anybody want to add anything? I couldn't hear you say that. Okay, let me do something to my screen here. I'm going to go to the letters one more time, okay? All right, so we're going to start from the top? Okay, let's start from the top. Go back down here. All right, so start with obedience, and we're going to go with the O, obedience. Everybody got that one? All right, V is for vessel. E is for what? Expect, yes, okay. I want to make sure somebody said that. R is for restoration, all right? And then we go back to F is for faithfulness, okay? And then we have L is for love, all right? And then we have the last one is going to be O again. And that was going to be outreach and worship. We're going to put those two together in verse number 7. Okay? In 7. So we're going to have somebody read 7 for us.
Verse 7. Okay. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest.
Wow. Live on the rest. This part here is so amazing because we have to understand that the blessing, how the blessing is coming. And you got to understand something. When you're going to receive overflow. There are a couple of things that God wants us to be able to understand in the word outreach. And again, when you're talking about outreach, it means that when you are being blessed with overflow, outreach is one of the things that's going to happen. And why outreach? Why outreach? Because, see, he wants you to be able to touch somebody else. He wants you to be able to look at and say that God has been blessing me and been open doors for me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to what? I'm going to bless somebody else. And that's what he's saying. That's what outreach is all about. He says, now I want to pull you in from a dog world where it looked like you don't supposed to bless anybody or you supposed to keep it to yourself. He said, but I need to bring light to our life to show you the kindness of our heart. What God has been doing all the time is being able to do what? Just to shower and bless somebody else. But not only, he says the word W, which is worship, he says, now watch this. This is this exciting part right here. He said, watch this. He says, now when all of it's over, outreach is happening, you receive your overflow, and everything is happening, what's the last thing you should be doing? Come on now, you got to worship and be excited about what God has done. You got to be able to do something and be excited about what God has done in your life to bring light and happiness and overflow in your life. And see, so what did that look like? And so he's saying to us tonight, he says, now overflow, when it comes, he said, that means you be able to share with others. The big picture is, she did not have to worry about anything because why? Her sons or her would not be in debt. Her son would not be in slavery. She had enough to make sure that everybody around her, just like somebody said earlier, we're going to make sure that the neighbors know that she needed something. They know she was in destitute of help. And so now what is she doing? She got enough to make sure that she tell all her neighbors, this is what God has done for me. Now, watch one thing she can't explain. She can't explain where it all came from. But she can testify that she know it came from who? God. That's all what I'm telling you. So sometimes when people ask you, how did God do it? You can tell them what? I don't know, but he did it. And I'm so happy that he did because he blessed me, right? And I know he did it because there was no other way. I would have made it through without his hand being in it. You don't have to try to sit down, give him A, B, and C conversation about how he did it. You just got to be able to tell him that you know for a fact that what? He did it. And be able to let somebody know how good God is because he cleared her debt. He made sure that her sons was free. And so a result of the overflow, she was able to do what? Praise God. Come on now. Have you ever been somewhere and God been so good to you? You said, wait a minute. If nobody else is going to raise their hand, I can just wave my hand and be excited about what God is doing. And that's what overflow looks like. Matter of fact, if you just don't wave your hand, if you don't clap your hand, it might have happened to somebody in this house tonight. You've been driving in your car and God has been so good to you, and you can sing by yourself and you can sing a tune that nobody else didn't know but you and God. Now watch this. Yeah, you singing it. Yeah, you might be out of tune, but you so happy you don't care. You ain't singing from the whole church and anybody else. You so happy that God has been so good to you. You just singing that song as you are riding down the road. Because why? He has been so good to you. Look at some of your homes right now. Look at where you came from when you was a child and when you was growing up. Look how God has blessed you. You ever just been so thankful to God? Wait a minute. You know, you brought me from a mighty long way. I'm glad I'm not back at home. I'm glad I love my parents. I love where I came from. But I'm glad that you have blessed me in a mighty way. And so your expression of joyfulness cannot be contained. So when you've been so excited, when you have been so excited and overflow has come in your life, you just can't contain it. It's just like what he said in Joshua. He says, it's just like what? Fire shot up in my bones. You just so excited about what God has done, you just can't wait to tell somebody what God has done. And so when you have this, it's like this right here. He says, every time you get a chance, here's the good part. Every time you get a chance, guess what you're doing? You are just thanking God. Because why are you thanking him? Because it only came because he has been what? So good to you. And the overflow came in her life. Watch this. Overflow came in her life. She don't know where it came from. She know that she went to the man of God to help her. She poured out and she said, wait a minute, I don't know where all this all came from, but it was nobody but God. But every time I have to believe, every time she got up in the morning and looked and still had more jars, she kept saying, now where is it coming from? But Lord, I thank you. And see, that's what we have to do sometimes. We don't have to be the richest person in the room. But God is still giving us more than enough. And whatever he's given us and what he's allowing us to have, guess what we still should be saying? Lord, I thank you. So including this lesson tonight, we got to understand that, yes, she had empty jars, but she had a willing spirit to move when God told her to move. Now, I'm telling you right now, when God is getting ready to give you overflow, you got to be able to move. You can't stand still because overflow ain't going to happen if you just going to be stagnated. It ain't happening in your life. You got to be able to move, okay? You got to be able to push the door open, okay? Sometimes you go to a door, you got to be able to go push and comes open. You can't be standing there and thinking, oh, every door is just going to be an automatic door. You got to be able to push the doors open, okay? You got to be able to watch this. Somebody got to be able to get up and go to the interview. God has already made it passive. He's already made a way for you, but you're scared to go to the interview. He says, your breakthrough, your overflow is just waiting on you. You just got to go to the interview. Okay? Got to go to the interview. You ready to go back to school? All you got to do is go down and fill out the application. They're already waiting on you. You're going to be an A student, but you just got to get over the fear factor of you not being able to do it. He said, if you're ready to go back to school, he said, go in that direction. Just go. He said, it's already waiting on you. He said, you've been trying to start a new career. He said, but it's been waiting on you. He said, all you got to do is just push the button and say, I'm ready to go. He says, access has been waiting on you. He said, the people who's going to bless you in your business always waiting on you. He says, all the contracts is coming your way. But guess what you got to do? You got to get out your seat. And you got to at least walk through the door. Just like the widow woman did. She got to knock on some doors. And when you knock on the doors, guess what he says is going to happen? The people are going to welcome you in because why? You stepped out and you was waiting on your overflow. And guess what he said? He said, all of a sudden, your new career is just going to bloom. You're going to be wondering where it came from. You're going to say, God, what happened? He said, all you did was just step out in your overflow. He said, I've been telling you this all the time. He said, but you just been standing there. You've been scared. You've been trying to look at it from a different perspective. You've been looking at it because you're thinking, well, I don't see it that way. I'm a little scared, you know. And he said, no, he said, it's just been waiting on you. You got to be willing to do what God has been telling you to do. And here's the last part here. You got to be willing to do it even when you don't see the guarantees in your face. You don't see the guarantees right in front of you. It's not staring you in the face. You got to have a little faith to step out and know that he's right there by your side. And guarantees are not there. But you got to know that he's waiting on you to open up those doors. And don't be afraid to go into this new season of your life to see what overflow really looks like in your life. And tonight, as you walk out of it tonight, I want you to tell somebody, tell at least 2 people, step out in your overflow. Can you do that for me tonight before you leave? Just tell 2 people on your way out the door. Say, step out. Because somebody need to hear this, because somebody's been procrastinating. Somebody's not willing to step out because they're afraid to take that next step. So just tell at least 2 people, because you might touch that person hard. They need some more encouragement to step out in their overflow. So again, Rock is going through this year. Their theme this year is fellowship and overflow. Rock is getting ready to accelerate, because people in here have heard this word tonight, and they realize that I'm going to step in my what? Overflow. And it's waiting on you. It's waiting on you. Okay? Hey, anybody got any questions before we get out here tonight? I thank you so much for being here. I hope something was said to enlighten your heart and minds that will allow us to grow in our grace. Somebody said something? You good? Okay. All right, let's get ready to pray so we can get out of here. Reggie, can you give us a little music, man, as we, I don't know what you can play, and then we get ready to get out of here. But let me just say a word of prayer. Y'all can stand to your feet. Make sure you tell 2 people on your way out of here, step into your overflow. Father, we thank you again tonight.
Hello, welcome to Rock of Fredericksburg. Thank you so much for being a part of it. My name is Minister Mallard, and it's only went by so fast because we're doing the work of the Lord, what the Lord has blessed us to do, and that is giving back to the community, serving those that are in need. And we've been able to do that through our tithes and our offerings. And we would love for you to be a partner with us through your tithes and your offering, through your giving. And that is something the Lord has laid upon your heart. Feel free to be a part of that, because we know that we want to continue to serve the community and do what we can to bless those that are in need. If that's something you would like to partner with, there are several different ways to give. There's the NROC Fredericksburg website that you can go on to, that you can do as well, www.NROCFredericksburg.org. Or you can go onto the Facebook page, and there's also a link there as well. You can do secure giving as well. Or you can also call us online, which is 540-418-1711. We would love to hear from you, and we would love for you to sow into our ministry, because we know that we're doing the work of the Lord. Again, thank you so much for your time. We thank you so much for your blessing, what you're going to do, and in thanking you in advance for your giving and sowing into this ministry. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.